Hello, and welcome to the PI Playbook Podcast, a show where we get inside the huddle with successful personal injury law firms, find out what's working well, and what their plan is moving forward into the future. I'm really excited about today's conversation. I'm here with Paemon Aramju, founder of Aramju Law Firm. Paemon, thanks for making the time for this.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, of course. What caught my attention about Paemon's story is the intentionality behind how he and his wife Ashley built their practice. They were actually voted most likely to start a law firm while at UMKC's law school, and they made it happen right out of the gate in 2014. What makes their firm different isn't just the husband-wife partnership. Paemon's practice emerged from a deeply personal experience with the loss of his father, which shaped his commitment to personal injury work. He's known for being willing to take cases all the way to trial, and he's built his reputation on a foundational motto: advocating, educating, and empowering clients. As someone who also serves as assistant county counselor for the Clay County and teaches as an adjunct professor, Paemon brings a multidimensional perspective to running a growing practice in a competitive market. Paemon, you and I actually started the law firm right out of law school, which is not the path most attorneys take. Walk me through kind of the conviction to start your own law firm immediately out of law school.
Yeah, Adam, it's a fun story, actually. So I wasn't very intentional when it comes to that point in our life. The reason I went to law school was merely because I really liked my now wife, at that time girlfriend. But the reason we started the law firm was for important reasons. And what had happened was I was interning at the prosecutor's office down in Jackson County, Missouri. And it was such a wonderful opportunity because for many law students, we don't have the opportunity to step into the courtroom and kind of see how things are handled as rubber meets the road. And what happened is I would go to court, and day after day, I'd find that defense counsel was meeting with their client for the very first time in court. And for me, that was really eye-opening. I thought, this can't be the way that it is. I didn't have family members that were lawyers. I didn't grow up knowing lawyers. So this was my first opportunity to see the way that it worked. And I remember I kept going to court as much as I could. And time again, it was the same thing. And what I found out was that was just the nature of practice, that unfortunately many attorneys didn't take the client care in the same way I felt it should be treated. And they would literally meet their client in person for the first time in court. And what I always felt was interesting about that is that we're talking about an area law, criminal law at that point, in which people are facing loss of liberty, one of the most important things that we all have. When I saw that happen, I told Ashley, I said, I think we can do better. I think we can care for clients and give them a better experience than what's going on in the community. And that was really what fueled the conviction to start the law firm. And we sort of made a declaration to everybody in law school. We said, we are going to start a firm and we're going to do better than what we're seeing happening in the community.
And you guys originally started off as a family law practice, correct?
Yeah. So when we first started our firm in 2014, we actually handled several different areas of law. And this is something that I learned later on, wasn't probably the best approach, but my wife at that point had been clerking with a judge, and he was on his family law rotation. So she had the opportunity to see day in and day out how a family law courtroom worked, which gave her great litigation insight. She had also done some estate planning. I, on the other hand, had done some internship work at the prosecutor's office and was familiar with traffic law. So when our firm first started, it was estate planning, family law, criminal law, and traffic. And I'm sure you're familiar with Pareto's principle. We found out from 2014 all the way until we finally switched to personal injury that the whole 80-20 rule really is true. We were finding that 80% of our revenue was coming from just particular areas. And we continued to niche down as we went to finally, we were just doing family law before we switched to personal injury.
Interesting. So was the division of the practice that was producing 80% of the results, was it the family law aspect or was it the personal injury side?
Well, so we hadn't focused on personal injury until after I had lost my dad in 2021. Up until that point, we had done a little bit of personal injury. We'd find occasional cases we'd co-counsel on, but certainly wasn't an area law that we focused on. So what produced that whole 80%, it was family law. And it was interesting because at the end of every single year, we were looking at our revenue and we found out traffic wasn't really producing much revenue. We found out criminal wasn't producing much revenue. Estate planning wasn't producing much revenue. And we continued to sort of nix areas of law, which I wish we had done sooner, candidly, because it gives you an ability to dive deeper and to have a better understanding of what you're doing rather than the more superficial understanding when you have so many different practice areas.
Yeah, and allows you to kind of focus in on what's actually moving the needle instead of just staying busy.
100%.
Yeah, and on your site and in your client reviews, communication comes up constantly. It's clearly a cornerstone of your practice. You said that in law school you saw attorneys who didn't know their client's name and just met for the first time on the courthouse steps. I mean, that's a pretty stark observation. How have you operationalized that commitment to communication? What does that actually look like day to day in your firm?
Yeah, great question. It becomes a core value that we have here. And I say this from the vantage point of I think we as attorneys can sometimes forget how critical it is that we communicate with our clients. I mean, just as a practical matter, it's certainly one of the highest bar complaints that people make is communication, but also from a human respect. When people call lawyers, it's typically not for many good reasons. I mean, other than estate planning, where maybe they're doing some future planning, but even then, it's oftentimes fueled by a family member passing or something bad happening that ignited the need to now try to resolve the issue. Particularly in personal injury, people are calling attorneys oftentimes in one of the darkest days that they ever faced. And the idea of a phone ringing and ringing and ringing, and then having to leave a voicemail only to call another law firm and have that same experience is terrible. And so it's become a core value of ours since the foundation of the firm to make sure client communication is a priority. And I think it's going to carry the needle for us for sure because it really leaves a lasting impression on people to have a phone answered by someone who cares and addresses their need. Or if we can't, tries to provide the resources to address their need. I've found, in an industry that's so saturated like personal injury, it's amazing to me that when we talk to our clients and we say, why did you choose us? You had all the opportunity to hire many different law firms. And they say, because you answered your phone and because you listened. It's a really good differentiator for any law firm.
So, what does that actually look like day to day in your firm? Do you just have staff that are constantly available to answer the phone? Do you give everybody your cell phone number and you're answering it 24/7? Or how does that actually work in your firm?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we had made the mistake of trying to have people in different seats. And so have a paralegal answer phones, but it distracts from what their responsibility is to gather records, draft demands, correspond with adjusters. So we have, yeah, intentionality in the people that answer the phone to make sure that the phone's actually answered. And then if they can't answer it, it bounces to some other people. I've tried to, to the best I can, really set clear rules on avoiding this game that we play with phone calls back and forth. And so we're really intentional setting up phone calls. Now, this has really helped us with time management. You wouldn't believe how many times people miss the call back, miss the call back, miss the call. And it's just a time suck. It's not productive for anybody. And I've really thought of a client's time I need to be respectful of. And if we schedule time with clients, what it gives them an opportunity to do is make themselves available so they can actually handle what we need to discuss and resolve. And it does the same for me too. And that's been great as far as time management to schedule what we need to do done as opposed to just spontaneously calling people and saying, well, they didn't answer. It's like, yeah, we could have done better. We could have worked with them and their schedule too.
Very good. So you and Ashley are partners in the law firm and also in life as husband and wife. It seems to me like Ashley kind of focuses more on the family law side of the practice, doing guardianship and estate planning, and you handle the personal injury and trial work. How do you think about that division strategically? And as you've grown the team, how has that partnership model informed your hiring and culture building in your firm?
Yeah, so Adam, that was in fact how we handled our cases from the very beginning. It was interesting. When we started our practice, Ashley did family law and estate planning. I did traffic and criminal. Now, that evolved, and we found that we are really a great team. If you ever dig into like Gino Wickman's book, Traction or Rocket Fuel, you'll find that we are the traditional innovator integrator mix, she being the integrator, me being the innovator. So since 2021, we resolved the family law cases that we had, but we haven't actually signed a family law case for now 4 years. We're only handling personal injury cases. And she has really taken the responsibility of integrator to heart, helping develop systems and processes so that we can scale this and give clients a reliable legal service that's not dependent on just a sole attorney.
Awesome. You know, another thing that stands out about your kind of positioning in the marketplace is that you explicitly take pride in being willing to take cases all the way to trial. In a market in a lot of personal injury firms that just want to settle as quickly as possible, that's a key differentiator. What percentage of your cases do you think actually go to trial? And how does that willingness to take a case to trial change the negotiating dynamic with insurance companies?
Yeah, this is such a good question. There's a lot to unpack. So about 20% of our caseload right now is in litigation. Um, Relatively young attorney. We tried our 17th jury trial. I think it was 3 Mondays ago. And It's hard to get cases to go to trial. It's fascinating because the American Bar Association did a study on this, and they found that less than 1% of cases were going to trial, about 0.6% of cases. And it's a real problem. When we talk to faculty at the law school here, we're learning that about a year after graduation, 70% of students are doing transactional, 30% are doing litigation. So you can see the tides are strongly pushing towards settlement. And it's interesting because what you're also seeing is companies trying to take data and try to give information as to what an appropriate settlement is. The problem is when the pool of cases that are getting tried is typically the bad cases that couldn't get settled because nobody would give an offer on them, frankly. You end up having really bad analysis and give clients really bad information to rely on. Now, the American Bar Association tried to pick apart and understand why is it that we're having so few cases getting tried. And they did a self-assessment for judges and for mediators and for clients and for attorneys. And I don't know that anybody was willing to take their share of responsibility. When we talk to our clients, we are coloring the opportunity dramatically. I can, on the one hand, tell a client, hey, you shouldn't try your case. It's not a good case to get tried. The jury's not going to do well. They're not going to like you. They're not going to trust you. And on the other hand, we can be really optimistic about going to trial. We can say, this is your community. They're going to do right by you. They're going to listen to you. They're going to care for you. It's so critical that we as attorneys develop the confidence to try cases. So we carry that in the conversations we have with our clients. The pressure to settle is prevalent, whether it be mediators or it be the court, or it be a client's urge for financial need because they lost the ability to make money. It's all over the place. And so it becomes all the more critical for us to develop the confidence. And I give so much credit to the trial ad program that I participated in, the bench trials I had an opportunity to try as we were getting better, because it put us in a position to where it's really fun to go to trial. It's really fun to pick a jury. And I know that's a debilitatingly nervous process for many attorneys. And I can only imagine that the conversation that the very nervous attorney has with their client is different than the conversation an attorney who's eager to try a case has.
Has that ever kind of backfired on you where you've been confident to go to trial and kind of encourage the client not to take the settlement and to push it, and the jury or their peers is going to see things the way they do, and it hasn't turned out that way?
Yeah, we've lost jury trials for sure. And that's a responsibility that's heavy. I mean, one of the greatest things that I take pride in is that most clients, they have no idea what their case is worth. I mean, there was no high school class of how do I value my life and how do I value the harms and losses. They don't know. And some attorneys want to give the scapegoat answer of a case is worth what the client says it is. And there's no truth to that. Clients have no idea. So what clients do that trust their attorney is they defer to their attorney. They say, well, you're the attorney, you should know. And I think there's a lot of merit to that. I think the attorney has a responsibility to know the client, understand the story and the pain points so that we can care about them and communicate that to a jury. And will we get it wrong? Yes, we will absolutely get it wrong. But there's a powerful speech called Man in the Arena that talks about celebrating the person who's willing to get into the arena even when they fail, rather than being the critic from the outside who won't even step foot in the arena. And we do. I'm confident we've got it wrong. I'm confident we will get it wrong, not only for the client, but also as a business. If we just look at this from a business perspective, we're paying our staff to do discovery. We're paying our staff to gather records. We're taking time to go to court. And if we're not increasing the case value to where it's profitable for the firm, that's a problem too. From both regards, for the client and for the firm, it can be an issue.
Right. So that's interesting. And, I'm glad to hear that, it hasn't made you sort of gun shy when you've gotten it wrong and taken a case to trial and not had a favorable outcome.
No, and I will tell you, I have immense respect. I have so much respect for attorneys. And you hear these stories of people that have $200,000-$300,000 in case expenses on a products liability or med mal case, and they go to trial and they lose. And the fact that they get back up and do it again, gosh, those people are worth celebrating. Those are the people that are really willing to carry the torch for their client, despite going through the hard stuff they've gone through.
Yeah. They're the people in the arena, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you and Ashley are both from Kansas City, Northland, Oak Park High School, and Maple Woods Community College through the A-plus scholarship program, then Northwest Missouri State and UMKC Law. You've been featured talking about how the A-plus program changed your trajectory. How does the local connection and that made it here story factor into your client relationship and your firm's identity?
Yeah, for sure. So when we were in high school, I was powder coating motorcycles. And so people would trust me to bring typically sport bikes into our garage. I'd disassemble them, I'd powder coat them, and I'd put it back together and give it back to the client or the customer. And I had this mindset that I was either going to be a police officer for reasons I'm not entirely sure. My dad worked for KCPD, maybe that had something to do with it. Or I was going to powder coat motorcycles. But in no way, shape, or form did I think I was going to go to college or ever become an attorney. And the A+ scholarship had, in my opinion, relatively low barriers of entry. And a relatively low GPA and 40 hours of community service gets you 2 free years of undergrad. And so when you have a girlfriend who you have the hots for wanting to go to undergrad and you can go for free, the answer was pretty clear. So that
Nice.
really gave us the trajectory that we were on to do what we do. And I think the way that it's shaped our practice is that many people would describe us, and I really take this as a compliment, as we're not like normal attorneys. And I really like that because I think we are down to earth. We care about our clients. We like to listen to our clients. We like to get to know our clients. And I think having maybe the experience of childhood that I had and the trajectory through college that we had has really kept us intact and have the humility of who we are.
That's interesting you say that. What is it that you kind of identify as not being like typical attorneys when you hear that from other people?
I drive a 1961 International Metro that says on the side of it, delivering justice one case at a time. I mean, we're weird. We're really weird. I think we're down to earth. I think we're relatable. I think that when someone comes into our office and they're greeted by Sophia and they grab a seat and we offer them a drink and then we sit and get to know them as a person and not just as a client, I think that sets us apart from the traditional law firm dynamic where some attorneys view themselves as almost better than the client.
Yeah. And you're not just running the firm, you're also serve as assistant county counselor for Clay County. You handle probate matters and you serve as an arbitrator in the Office of Dispute Resolution. That's a lot of hats. How do those roles feed back into your work at the firm? And are there any insights or relationships from that public service that make you a better advocate for your clients?
So the county has provided an opportunity to try mini jury trials. We handle what's called the civil detentions, in which case somebody has been placed at a hospital and the hospital wants to treat them for some additional time. They have a right to jury trial within 2 judicial days. And so it's not uncommon for us to find out on a Friday at 4 or 5 o'clock that we have a jury trial on Monday. That has given us a great opportunity to pick juries over and over, do directs and opens over and over. And it's given us the confidence to then be able to take our personal injury cases, which so often are hard to get to go to trial. Uh, it's been really fun doing that. The other thing that the arbitration, and we've also mediated cases for a while, have given us the opportunity to do is see things from a different vantage point. I understand that mediators, being one, have a score keep, if you will. It's not uncommon for mediators to say, yeah, I resolve 90% of my cases, or they'll even give specific numbers, like the last 200 cases they've gotten settled. There's an ego to what we do. And it's important to know that when you bring your client into mediation to try to temper the whole dynamic that's going on so that the pressure can't be quite exerted as forcefully as sometimes it may be.
In the Voyage KC interview, you mentioned that your future is focused on growth, personally and professionally, and that the plan is to grow the firm while maintaining client care. That tension, as far as scaling up while staying personal, is something every founder wrestles with. What are you most focused on right now to make sure growth doesn't compromise what makes your law firm distinct and special?
Yeah, no, 100% right. That's what many businesses face the struggle with. And we experienced it back in 2019. We had a couple paralegals, a few attorneys, and we were finding that the quality of care wasn't tracking the growth of the law firm. And that's a real problem because at our core, client care and communication is the foundation for why we do what we do. And so it becomes important for us all, everybody who's a law firm, to do self-development programs, do mindset work, to continue to focus on why we do what we do. It becomes important for the law firm to identify what the law firm, the entity really is, so that everybody has criteria to apply in making decisions. We're finding that really being intentional with growth to make sure client care tracks with growth has been the way to resolve that issue thus far. But that is a constant struggle because the more you distance yourself from it, the less control over you have over it, and the more trust you're placing in others to make the right decisions that track with why you do what you do.
Interesting. Do you have any concrete examples of any sort of mindset training or what kind of you instill as far as the culture is concerned whenever you do make a new hire or when you're, setting benchmarks for growth?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you silly examples and I can give you more concrete examples. We have a draft named Gunner the Good Deed Draft. What's really important is everybody here in the office remains positive with an optimistic outlook. And it can be hard because we're dealing with people's really darkest days. And so Gunnar literally is a giraffe, and he's, I don't know, 5 foot tall. And right now he's traveling between offices. So if any one employee feels like it's worth celebrating another employee, then Gunnar gets to travel to their office and stays in their office. That's just something simple. But we're also having our employees in a staff development program. And every Friday, we have an opportunity to talk about things like the client experience that they have, or how to make sure that we're doing productive work and not just busy work. And continuing to have those dialogues as an office and as a team, I think continues to instill the core values and the reason that we're here.
Paemon, you've had a firm just over a decade now, switched over to a focus on personal injury, 4 years ago? What's on the horizon? What are the next 6 to 12 to 18 months look like? What are some goals that you have for your firm?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've realized that if I'm just me and it's just maybe Ashley and I, maybe a couple support staff, that we're not able to help the people that we want to help. And the unfortunate truth is that many people don't get the help that they need when they need it in the way that they need it. Sometimes it's the message, not necessarily the outcome that people are focused on and how they're treating and how they're cared for. And so I appreciate the fact that if we scale this firm and we maintain that quality of care, there's so many more people that we can help. I also appreciate the fact that small is to some extent vulnerable. I mean, we've had 2 kids, we've had a house fire, lost my dad, and we have many more struggles ahead of us. And any of those opportunities that have come to our life take us out of the opportunity to help our client. And so making sure that we continue to grow and scale and not continue to shrink is a priority of ours as we go. I think the other thing that comes hand in hand with that is I've found it to be extremely difficult to maintain legal production, be involved in the work, going to trial, while also leading a team. And so for us, it meant picking a priority, which right now it's leadership, it's sales, it's marketing, as opposed to legal production, which means finding good people that can carry the case is all the more important for us.
So does that mean hiring more attorneys to help handle the caseload?
Absolutely.
Have you made any hires besides is it just you and Ashley still currently?
Current makeup of the office is that we've got 2 paralegals, a lit paralegal, we've got an administrative assistant, we've got a marketing assistant, and we're on the hunt for another associate. Unfortunately, that's been a role that we've had some ups and downs with throughout the year.
Sure, sure. Always difficult to find the right hire.
For sure.
You also have started an initiative called the Red Envelope program. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so the Red Envelope Project actually stemmed from an interview that I had with a local sheriff. And the question I had is that there's certainly fact patterns where people are involved in wrecks. And unfortunately, they may not have contacts available to the police department. And sometimes these like final moments of somebody's life is all the critical. I mean, if it meant saying goodbye to a loved one, a spouse, a child, as opposed to not being able to say goodbye, that's so critical. I mean, that's life changing. And so the question I had is, well, what if there was just simple contact information that was left in someone's glove box? What if there was just simply a red envelope and it had emergency contact in there? And many people by default, they'll say, well, I've got my phone and I can find an emergency contact, but that requires you to unlock the phone or to have emergency contact saved and accessible and for your phone to be found as well. So that's a good option and it's something everybody should do. But making sure emergency contact's available is so critical. And so my question to the sheriff was just merely, if contact information was available in the glove box, would you look? And they said, yeah, we always check places like that. And if it meant contacting a family member so they could meet their living family member at the hospital before, unfortunately, they may pass, or to make those important decisions about surgery and direction of care, that can mean all the difference in somebody's life.
Yeah. Paymon, as you continue to grow and scale this law firm and try and do the best you possibly can for your clients, what are some of the biggest headaches or what keeps you up at night as you manage a growing law firm?
I'll tell you, metrics is something that Ashley and I are continually trying to monitor and making the business provide predictable growth as opposed to spontaneous or unpredictable growth. And so I think it's something that I never really took serious and never had any formal training with as far as like, how do you establish key metrics in a business and how do you track those key metrics? And I found that as we grow, you certainly become mindful of things like making payroll and making sure that you're profitable and making sure you have cash flow. And those are the things that I think about. But as we continue to get better at tracking metrics, it eases my mind and I know we're okay. The data's there and we're doing just fine.
And what are those key metrics that you're looking to or trying to improve on as you grow your firm?
Yeah. So 99% of everything I do, I steal from other people. I'm grateful to have either mentors or resources available that we've read from. And there's this idea of a jumbotron, and the jumbotron contains all the key data points that you need. And those include things like number of signed cases, number of prospective cases, revenue this year, outstanding settlements this year. Those are some indicators as far as what we're doing. One of the biggest pain points for a personal injury firm is, of course, marketing and lead generation. And so it can always be scary thinking, how many cases are we signed? How many do we have in the door? But continuing to monitor that and see it year over year gives confidence that we're continually being on the right path that we need to be on.
Very good. Where can people find out more about you and Aramju Law Firm?
Yeah, good question. We are present across every single social media platform. I think we've posted over 300 videos on nearly every single one. We're pretty active with our newsletter every single week it's going out. And so if you look us up online, it's more likely than not you're probably going to find us, especially with the unique name that we have.
Very good. Hey, thanks for making the time and joining us on the PI Playbook today.
Absolutely, Adam. Thanks for having me.